We spend years and years in school learning all sorts of things, right? From algebra to ancient history. But if you ever stop to think about how much of that stuff we actually use in our day-to-day lives, the real truth is, while school gives us a great foundation, it often misses the most important lessons of all, the skills that really shape our happiness, our careers, and how we connect with people.
Just think about it for a second. Be honest. What percentage of all those subjects do you actually use today? My guess? It's probably a pretty small number. Now, this isn't to bash education at all, but it does shine a big, bright light on a huge gap between what we're taught and what we actually need to navigate this thing called life.
Because here's the thing. While knowing the Pythagorean theorem might fade, there are some skills, some core truths that, if you really learn them, can totally transform the quality of your entire life. They change how you see yourself, how you interact with others, and how you build a life that actually feels meaningful. And today, that's exactly what we're diving into.
We've broken this down into three main parts. First up, we're going to talk about mastering your own inner world. Then, we'll get into the tricky business of navigating your relationships. And finally, we'll cover how to define your own value on your own terms.
So, let's start with the one person you're with 24/7. Yourself. Part 1 is all about getting a handle on what's going on inside your head. And we'll do that by looking at the surprising power of silence and the absolutely essential skill of letting go.
Lesson number 1 is a total game changer, especially if you get a little bit of social anxiety. And it's this: the less you say, the more your words actually matter. See, we often feel this pressure to walk into a room and be interesting, to have the funniest stories, the cleverest remarks, but honestly, that's exhausting. The real power move is to flip the script. Stop trying to be interesting and start trying to be interested. The moment you focus on truly listening, all that pressure just melts away.
There's this fantastic Zen story about a student who keeps pestering his master asking, "What is the secret to wisdom?" And every single time, the master gives him the same one-word answer: "Listen." The student gets so frustrated and says, "I need more than that." And the master just calmly replies, "If you had listened, you wouldn't need more words." It's so simple but so profound. Listening is where wisdom begins. And this isn't just a nice idea. There's actually data to back it up. A Harvard study found that in most conversations, people only remember about 17 to 25% of what they hear. Think about that. So if you just dump a ton of words on someone, you're pretty much guaranteeing your main point will get lost in the noise. Being brief gives your words weight. Less talk, more impact. All right, on to our second lesson for mastering your inner world. And, this is a tough one. The lesson is let go or be dragged. Holding on tightly to things that are already gone, a past mistake, an old grudge, a relationship that ended, it doesn't save you. It does the opposite. It poisons your present and weighs you down like an anchor, dragging you backward.
This quote comes from another incredible Zen story. Two monks are walking, and one carries a woman across a river which is against their rules. Hours later, the second monk is still fuming about it, going on and on about how he broke the rules. And the first monk just turns to him and says this: he physically put the woman down hours ago, but his friend was the one still carrying the heavy emotional burden. So the question for you is, what are you still carrying?
Okay, so now that we've looked inward, let's turn that lens outward, to our connections with other people. Part 2 is all about navigating relationships, and we're going to look at communication, how to see someone's true character, and how to read between the lines of their priorities.
And here's our third lesson. You have to talk about your relationship with the person you're in the relationship with. Sounds obvious, right? But so often, we get this ratio completely backwards. We might spend, say, 20% of our energy talking to our partner about an issue, but we spend the other 80% venting and complaining about them to everyone else. That doesn't solve a thing. It just digs the ditch deeper.
I love this analogy. Imagine a man has a leaky roof. He complains to his friends, he tells his neighbors, he gets sympathy from everyone, but the leak just keeps getting worse. Finally, a wise neighbor tells him, "Go talk to your roof." In other words, stop talking around the problem and go directly to the source. That's where the real solution is. Now for lesson number 4. And this is such a critical piece of wisdom. Look, anyone can be charming and kind and patient when everything is going their way, but you don't really know who someone is until you see them under pressure, when they're stressed, when things fall apart, when they don't get what they want. You have to understand pressure doesn't create cracks in someone's character, it just reveals the ones that were there all along.
And this quote from Wayne Dyer just says it all, doesn't it? When you squeeze an orange, you don't get pineapple juice, you get what's inside. It's the exact same for people.
Whatever comes out of a person when they're under pressure, well, that's what was inside them to begin with. Pay very close attention to that. It tells you everything you need to know.
All right, our fifth lesson is all about learning a new language, the language of excuses. Because excuses aren't just random words people say. They are direct translations of that person's true priorities. You just have to learn how to decode them. So let's look at this handy little translation guide. When someone tells you, "I'm just bad at texting," what they're really saying is, "You're not a big enough priority for me to text back." When you hear, "I'm just really confused about what I want," that usually means, "I'm crystal clear that I don't want you." And the classic, "I'm not ready for anything serious," oh, that often translates to, "I'm totally ready for serious, just not with you." At the end of the day, actions speak louder than words, every single time.
Okay, let's bring it home with our final section. And this one is all about you. It's about learning to stop waiting for other people to validate you and instead defining your own value by setting strong boundaries and being unapologetic about your own growth.
62%.
So what is that number? That brings us to lesson number 6. You do not get what you deserve in life. You get what you accept. That 62%? That is the increased chance of being in an emotionally exhausting, draining relationship if you consistently let small boundary violations slide. Every single time you accept behavior that's less than you deserve, you are teaching people that it's okay to treat you that way.
And let's be really clear on what a boundary actually is. It is not a rule you set to control someone else. You can't control other people. A boundary is a promise you make to yourself. It's deciding ahead of time how you are going to respond to protect your own peace when someone crosses a line. The power isn't in their action, it's in your response.
And that brings us to our 7th and final lesson. And it's a hard truth about personal growth. When you start setting boundaries, when you start healing and evolving into a stronger person, not everybody in your life is going to be clapping for you. Some people are going to miss the old you. You know, the one who didn't have boundaries, the one who was a people pleaser, the one who was easier to control. They don't really miss you, they miss the control they had over you. Never apologize for outgrowing people.
So, to wrap it all up, here's your action plan. It's pretty straightforward. Master your inner world by speaking less and letting go. Navigate your relationships by talking directly to the person involved. And define your own value by finally setting the boundaries that you need to protect your peace and your growth.
You know, at the end of the day, every single lesson we talked about comes back to this one powerful idea. Your life is built on the foundation of what you are willing to accept. Your standards literally create your reality. So the real question isn't just what you learned here today. The real question is, what are you going to do about it? What is the one thing you are going to stop accepting starting right now?